Well, it's a good day. It's Friday. We're not quite into the season of the Friday Night Lights, but here we are with the old ball coach, Steve Warren of the Warbirds, the black and gold, the kids from the north side. Man, as a sportscaster, I always loved calling highlights with your teams, and then the Tuesday press conferences. Those are always great. Sometimes maybe perhaps if it was a loss, you always found a way to put a spin on it. But you're always what we call in the news business soundbite gold. You know, I think David Robinette could certainly agree with that. But thank you, Coach Warren, for hanging out with me today.
Happy to be here, man. It's I think you and I, or maybe I mentioned it in the email that you and I shared or something.
Mm-hmm.
Manny and the old coach, one more ride or something like
One,
that.
yes,
So
sir.
I'm excited to be here with you.
Yes.
I am.
Yes, indeed. Well, tomorrow down in San Antonio, you're going to be inducted into the Texas High School Coaches Association Hall of Honor, Hall of Fame, if you will, which is, I mean, that's a very distinct honor there because there's some greats that have come before you, and you're going to be associated with some of them at this point. Have you been able to put words to that? Really, just put that out in the world at this
It's
point.
it's such a humbling experience knowing who a lot of those guys are that are in the hall, and some people I've worked with, Tom Ritchie and Gary Gaines, to come to mind immediately. But it's the pinnacle of Texas high school football, and obviously it's an award that it's just really amazing, Manny. And I look back on all the people that have helped me and will go in there with me, in my opinion. I think it's a community thing. I think it's an Abilene High thing because it wasn't just me out there doing our thing. It was a lot of people, and it was so much fun. And for it to culminate, the Coaches Association means so much to me and my family. My dad was a coach and a part of the association back in the 60s. And it was important to him, and it still is today, and it's always been important to me and always will be. And to be in that hall is really, really special.
Yeah. Well, you started here in Abilene. You came from what, Rotan?
Rotan, yes, sir.
Home of the
The
Yellowhammers.
Yellowhammers.
They don't
Yeah.
even play 11-man football anymore. They
Right,
play 6-man
right.
football. But you were the head coach over there, correct?
Yes, I was.
And
Yes.
then you came over here and joined Gary Gaines, his staff in '94. Took over as the old ball coach, the head coach in 1996. Man, so from and then I remember coming on board here, with KTAB with Big Country Homepage Sports in 2008, and so you had already been, I mean, here you were an OG, an original gangster at that point. But I can remember watching you on KRBC or when down in San Angelo and in little old Cristobal, Texas, seeing like post game interviews with you on our NBC's channel because they would share the signal there, and I was like, man, wouldn't that be something to ever talk to that guy? And then many years later, there we are. But kind of going back to 99, 94 and then into 96, when you arrived at Abilene High, what was it like at that point? What was the football mentality like there?
Manny, there wasn't really a mentality at all. I mean, I think it was just such a non-relevant thing as far as, there was no winning mentality. There was no pride in the program. There was old tradition, which I very much appreciated. But I saw something which tweaked in me a little bit that I wanted to come over here with Gary. He had to ask me a few times, but I'll tell you, Royce Curtis made the difference.
Really?
The principal at the time. He and I had a separate conversation about Abilene High and about what he thought about it in his vision. And he sold me on coming with Gary. And I had no idea that I would be the head coach there in 2 years. Really did not. But it worked out that way for a reason. And, we set some things in motion that really came to fruition pretty quickly. And just changed the culture. But the word culture is a catchphrase these days. It wasn't back then, but it is now. And we changed the culture at North Six and Shelton and made it special. And it's still special today, and it will continue to be that way. and proud to have been a part of that.
Yeah, hairs are raising on my arms. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about that.
Yeah.
You know, you made mention before we started the pod, you know, whenever you first took over as head coach of Abilene High, and a one David Bacon, a one Gary Strickland were interviewing you, and Gary had, you know, had a question for you, you know, after the press conference.
He did. I talked about we're going to win here, and they had won in so long. His question was, what makes you think that you can win here? No one's won here. Well, they haven't won in 25 years or 30, however long it was. And I said, you know what? It's because nobody's talked about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to start off winning little things, but we're going to practice winning every day. That was our slogan from the get-go. And we took little victories, whether it was off the field. A lot of them are off the field to start with. But we started winning some football games, and it lit a fire on the north side of town like no other. And it just kept rolling, and it was so much fun to be a part of and watch the transformation of. You know, Manny, the one thing that I was really, really proud of was tying our tradition back to the old tradition.
Yes.
Because it was such a great tradition back in Chuck Mosier's days and even prior to that. And I know those guys, Chuck's guys, were really proud that we were able to do that, because many, many of them would come around and tell me that. And that made me proud. That was one of the things that really is special to me, that a lot of those guys, I got to be a part of be a friend with a bunch of them and be around them some. And they were really proud of what we were able to do.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're talking about establishing the culture, and, you know, I thought, you know, watching from afar as a young child, and, you know, getting to be a member of the media here in the city of Abilene and the big country, that was something to see that. But whenever you were, you know, certainly as you're making this transition, the winning culture here in North Abilene, is there a game, is there a team, is there a year, something that just kind of just clicked for you guys that just said, you know what, we can actually compete now?
You know, that very first year we were 5-4, but I remember we won the first 2 games, but the second game of the year was against Stephenville and Coach Browse and his juggernaut down there. And they were coming off their 3rd state championship, I guess, and the year before that had beaten us 55-7 or something.
Wow.
Like that. And we beat them. And it was just incredible. You would have thought we had won the Super Bowl. But it was such a jumping off point to beat somebody of that caliber early on. And even though we didn't make the playoffs that first year, the bar was set. We were going to start winning. And we did. And, you know, we took a step forward the next year, won in 97, won one more game. But in year 3, we took a step back. We were 4-6. So I think everybody in town and everybody surrounding our program thought, well, here we go again. Coach will leave, or he'll get run off or something. We'll get a new coach in here. We'll start all over again. But that was not the case. I mean, I could see what we were capable of if we continued down the path. We weren't perfect, but we were learning how to work. We were learning how to win. In 99, it all came together with a really deep run in the playoffs. And we went out to Midland, Texas. I remember the game very, very in 99, and it was an amazing. Now, we had the opportunity to make the playoffs that night with a win on the road, and sandstorm blew in that night, and it was the wind was blowing probably, you know how it goes in West Texas. Yeah. It was probably blowing 50 miles an hour out of the north, sandy, dirty, nasty night. And we took the ball in the 3rd quarter. They had to kick off to us, and we went 18 plays and into the wind and scored. And I remember that drive because they never recovered from it. We ate up the whole 3rd quarter in the wind, and
Wow.
went on and scored a couple more times. But I remember that game, and I remember the celebration in that old locker room at Midland Memorial that the Warbirds were
God
in the
bless it,
playoffs.
yeah.
Yes, for the first time in 50 years, and it was a pretty amazing feeling. It really was.
Wow.
So.
Who were some of the players on that team that made the difference?
Kevin Goodman was our quarterback. Kevin directed the team. We had some talent. Sneezy Beltran. Everybody don't remember Sneezy.
Oh, Sneezy.
Great running back. Sneezy was a running back, and I think on that drive we gave it to him every time except on a 4th and 1, and Kevin had a quarterback sneak for a first down or something like that. But we had some great players. But everybody will remember Sneezy and Frankie. But we had some great offensive linemen, and that just not a bunch of guys that were going to go on to the NFL or college, but a bunch of guys that believed in what we were doing.
Sure.
And it started there, and we ended up in Cowboy Stadium a couple times that year, which was the beginning to me of the whole Warbird Nation coming out when we went to the playoffs. Because I'm telling you, I don't know how many people were at those games, but it was unbelievable the amount of support we had from our community.
Anytime you mention, even if it's now, but during that time into the 2000s. When you mention Abilene High in the postseason, it's just, it got people going.
It did.
Because I think they kind of just had a nostalgic feeling, from the heyday of Chuck Mosier and some of those players from that time. They're like, are they back?
Yeah.
The black shirts,
Yeah.
what have you with all that. So.
Yeah, we were back, and our community got on board in a big way. Big way. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, you speak of, that game in Midland, and of course the Little Southwest Conference is the Little Southwest Conference, and it will always be that. I think now it's not the same because Abilene's not in there anymore. San Angelo Central still has a piece in that, but it's just not the same,
No.
And it never will be the same unless Abilene does ever make its way back to it. But, I can remember, whenever I was in college at Angelo State, by the way, both you and I,
Right.
That's our alma mater there, so
Right.
go Rams.
Harvard on the Concho.
Yes, yes. I can remember guys that I went to college with that went to Odessa High or Midland Lee, the artist formerly known as Midland Lee, that they talked about playing against the likes of Cedric Benson and Roy Williams, two guys that just dominated at the high school level, went on both to the University of Texas and then into the NFL. From your perspective, from the other side of the field on the sideline, what was that like coaching against those guys?
Speaking of Cedric Benson, God rest his soul, an amazing high school football player, one of the best that I've ever seen. And the first time I remember coming out to warm up against him when he was a sophomore. And if I may be mistaken, but I don't think so. I think maybe from the time he was a sophomore till he's a senior, that's when Coach Parchman then won 2 or 3 state titles in a row. Mm-hmm. I looked down there at Cedric and I thought, holy cow, that's a sophomore. I'd watched him on film all week long and knew he was good, but I thought I was looking at like some NFL player already, and the way he played the game, he was tough. You had to be tough to be in John's offense, but he was such a great player at that level. It was quite an honor to line up against guys like that. Roy Williams as well, maybe one of the best pure athletes in the country at that time. He could do it all. As evidenced by his ability to do things on the track and on the football field and in the basketball, gym and all,
Right.
and all that. And so it was. There were a lot of great players, but what overshadows all of that to me, Manny, is the mystique and the tradition of the Little Southwest Conference. Mm-hmm. It really did, and to be a part of that, not just a part of it, but to be a relevant part of it, was something I'll look back on with a lot of pride and a lot of excitement. We won the bell back, that tradition of the bell and all of those things surrounding the Little Southwest Conference was, it was a lot of fun. Mr. Kurt, we brought the bell home. That was a tradition the week after when all the coaches met to vote on the all-district team, the week after the regular season was over with. And the tradition was whoever had the bell brought it to that meeting, and the new district champion got to take it home. Mm. And I remember hooking that bell up to the back of my pickup, and it was at that time was maroon and silver, and it was your part of the tradition was to doll it up with your school colors.
Yeah.
And I pulled up to the front of the high school at Abilene High School, and Mr. Curtis had turned out the majority of the kids to see that day.
Is that right?
That was so cool. I mean, the bell was back, and we had it back multiple times, and that, to be a part of that old tradition in the Little Southwest Conference was really something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly, as in the 2000s, and certainly as I was became a member of the media here, and really experiencing the Little Southwest Conference, it was like, parity was always alive and well, because anybody could get anybody on a Friday night in the Little Southwest Conference. When you're coaching against the likes of Cedric Benson and Roy Williams, were there any moments that you were forever, that will live rent-free in your head, that were like, good gosh, did they really do that?
Oh, yeah. Some of the plays that Roy made in their passing game, which wasn't a lot because they didn't throw the ball a lot, but were phenomenal. They would let go of the quarterback would let go of the football, and he would end up catching it. And you would think, we had that defended. There's no way he's going to make that play, and he'd make that play. Or there's no way. We got Cedric pinned in, and he breaks 8 tackles later. He's still got the ball and moving. It was just incredible to play against guys like that, that were so special and continue to be special, at the next level. I mean, there was just a lot of them that, that liked those two guys that, applied their trade in the Little Southwest Conference, and that were really, really good and a lot of fun to play with, and a lot of fun to look back and think, holy cow, how did they do that?
Right.
At that time. It was a lot of fun. It really was.
All right, let's fast forward to the, I guess, to the early 2000s. You guys are kind of building this machine, if you will, North 6 and Shelton, as you say, and this is prior to 2009 when y'all won that state championship. But it's like y'all were coming close. Y'all were making waves, certainly into that third round. But there was one year where y'all came up against South Lake Carroll, and y'all bested them at that point.
Right.
And you played them at the old Texas Stadium.
Right.
With the hole in the roof there. Tell me about that moment, because I've seen video of that. That was a year before it was a few years, a little bit before my time here, but I can always Robinette loves talking about that, by the way. But share some moments of
it was an amazing night from the standpoint of that we were there, number one, and number two, we were playing against the vaunted South Lake Carroll Dragons. It was an opportunity that we saw to take a step forward in our program, because I really, and people around will tell you that I really love to get in the arena against the very best. We scheduled in non-district some really tough people, so that when we got to South Lake Carroll or whoever it was, we wouldn't be in awe of those top players. And that night, they jumped out to a quick lead. Riley Dodge was their quarterback, and a really good player. And they jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and they scored. He scored, and it was 14-0 at the end of the first quarter, and he came by the bench after he threw the touchdown pass and got in my face and kind of did a little bit of a dance.
No way.
I got a penalty because it made me so mad. I kind of went after him a little. I didn't go after him, but I did my part, Well, Chris Williams, who is I love the kid like he's my own to this day, came over and grabbed me, and he said, "Coach, we're going to need you. We're going to win this game. We'll take care of the rest of it." He got in my face and told me that, and was holding on to me. And sure enough, 3 quarters later, we're ahead 22-21, and they've got the football, and they're driving to score. They're in field goal range and could easily have kicked a field goal, I think. Riley's out of the game. He broke his shoulder I believe it was the second quarter.
Knocked him out.
We knocked him out. In fact, Chris was the one that made the hit that broke his shoulder. And we're ahead, and they're driving. And one of the things that Coach Fullen coached our defense up on was always being ready when the offensive line came up to we were always ready. We weren't going to be lollygagging around in our stance or anything like that. And they came to the line of scrimmage to run another play or two, and we really thought that they were going to maybe just line up. There was less than a minute to play in the game, and they snapped the ball from under center to kill the clock, and they fumbled it. And P.J. Jason, our nose tackle, covered it, and we win the game right then and there. And it was an unbelievable feeling that we just beat South Lake Carroll. This is crazy, and that's how our fans were going. I mean, it was I think we took back-to-back timeouts just to calm everybody down. We had to go back out there and take a knee or two to win the game. It wasn't over. Anyway, that was a special feeling because we had actually beat a team that was where we wanted to be. We'd won a bunch of big games. We really had. But to beat somebody at that stage, at that point in time, kind of solidified us in the state championship conversations moving forward, I think.
Was that third round? Was that Thanksgiving
week? I believe
week?
it was, yes. I believe it was the third round at that time.
Who'd y'all play after that?
We played the week after that. I believe we played a Round Rock school.
Okay.
No, that's not true. I believe it was Hebron. We played. I can't remember exactly who it was.
There's a lot of teams.
Yeah, and then we ended up in the semifinals back at Cowboy Stadium, and that was when we played Round Rock in the semifinals, and we go to overtime with them, and we got beat in overtime that year. So that was tough, but again, it was looking back on, we're in the semifinals. I mean, we played into week 15. There was not a week 15 back in the 50s and 60s when Abilene High was in the playoffs during those times, and so we felt like we were relevant at that time and could beat anybody at any time, and really carried ourselves that way from that point forward.
So that was what, 06?
07.
07?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, right.
So that's you're literally 2 years away from that to where you guys get back to that point, because the following year in 08, and that was, or it was 09. I'm sorry, and y'all played Mansfield, I believe, in Stephenville.
Correct.
And that was one of the, I think it was the opening round of some sort?
It was. There was a lot of change that year. And I remember a lot of it vividly because my son took over as our quarterback, and he grew up wanting to play in the Little Southwest Conference. And that didn't happen that year. We changed districts. That we got realigned, and that was really the end of the Little Southwest Conference. They moved us east, and we were in a district.
Such a weird district.
Yeah, it was strange. We really didn't know hardly anything about those folks at all. They didn't know anything about us. I remember some of those teams, some of those coaches calling and asking me, what motel they stayed in whenever they'd drive out here. Well, it was just 2 hours. They thought we were 6 hours from the Metroplex or whatever, but it was funny, But yeah, we ran through the season at 10-0, and we felt like we had a pretty good football team, but we didn't really know for sure, because during district play we really didn't come up against anybody that really gave us much of a ball game until week 10. We played North Crowley. We'd already clinched the district championship. Sad night. Chris Williams, our All-American linebacker, got hurt and was out, for the rest of the season. But we played Mansfield over there in Stephenville, and it was a horrible night weather-wise. We couldn't throw the football effectively. We threw the ball pretty well at times, but the wind was just awful. And they had a young man, Stefan. Ended up going to Stanford.
Yes.
Was their running back. And he carried the ball 42 times that night, and we just couldn't stop him. I mean, they knew Chris was not in there at linebacker, and
they took full advantage.
And they did. And I don't blame them. And they ended up, we had a chance at the end of the game. We were driving to score, which would have won the game for us, but we bowed out in the first round, which was a real disappointment for us. We 10-1 instead of going on to the next round. But I was proud of that team. They were not near as talented as the team before them. We graduated a lot of really good players the year before that. proud that my son was able to navigate those waters like he did, and that was the fun part. But yeah, that kind of set the stage, the mood for the off season of how we bowed out way too early. Of that was not our expectation at all, and kind of set the stage for some of the younger guys to step up and say, "Hey, I didn't like that feeling. I don't want to do that again. Let's make sure that we work to put ourselves in a position not to let that happen again."
Yeah.
And Mansfield you got to give them credit. They were good.
They were a damn good football
team.
team.
They were a really good football team, and that running back was special. He played in the league for NFL for 7 or 8 years.
I remember watching him on Saturdays, and I was like, man, I just covered that kid playing in Stephenville.
He was a good player.
Yeah.
A really good player. But, it was a good season for us. I think we overachieved in a lot of ways, but set the stage for what was to come the following year.
Yeah. Before we get into that state championship year, because that just set Abilene on fire, I do want to talk about, being able to coach your son. Steven that dude was an athlete. He could run, he could throw. And more importantly, like, he had the attention of his team. He was a really good leader. And, from your perspective, being able to put words to that, touch on that, being able to coach your son.
That's a special time that people don't really realize that because you're there. The sideline's a special place. Locker rooms are a special place. There's things that happen there that don't happen in any other venue, any other entity. But to be able to share those times, from the time Stephen was a little boy and could run out there and get that tee, he was with me on the sidelines. And so to watch him work his way into a position to be the Abilene Eagles starting quarterback as a senior was so special to me. And the times that we would have, I look back on now, that were coach-player, were really special because I had a lot of trust in him, and I would listen to him. There were times that it would just be me and him, and he would tell me, "Well, I think we could do this, Dad," or "I think we could." He didn't call me Dad; he called me Coach, because he that's the way I did my dad. I played for my dad, and so those are things that not many people get to experience. Those emotions. Mm-hmm. He saw me at the highest of the highs. He saw me at the lowest of the lows, and we shared a lot of those moments together, and that's something that you can never take away from us. It'll always be there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's special stuff, man.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. All right, so 2009 comes, and, you guys are coming off that heartbreaking 2008 season where y'all lost in the opening round. You're still in that Metroplex district. It's still very weird at this point. What was the feeling? What was the vibe heading into that season that would end with the state championship? We as coaches had to have a lot of conversations about how are we going to handle this differently? What are we going to do so that we don't get ourselves in that position again? And really, we just leaned on the things that had got us there to start with. We didn't change a whole lot. We continued to work hard and practice, knowing full well that we were going to play a schedule in district that wasn't going to be challenging, but that we had to do things the right way to continue. Even if we were ahead 4 or 5 touchdowns and you were on the field, we had expectations that you played at a high level. And we really hammered that home all the time, especially in practice, because it didn't matter if we were playing Fort Worth Poly, and the kids knew. The kids, you can't hide stuff from the kids. They knew we were going to win that game. So we had to really hammer them in practice about the little things. And I think my coaches did a great job of that all year long, navigating that 10-game season, the regular season, to get us ready, to play in the playoffs and to keep us focused on, what was important, and that was that very next game in front of us, because we didn't need to get everybody thought we had a good team, but we weren't sure that we had a good team until we started rolling in the playoffs and then met Cedar Hill in the third round. Yeah, which I want to talk about that game here in a bit, but we were kind of introduced at that point to start the season when 2 days began to roll around to Ronell Sims and Herschel Sims. and the Boo Badientes of the world and the AC Carriolas. And we're just like, okay, these, I mean, they're kind of regular looking guys. You
Yeah.
know, they're not big in stature. Obviously, Ronell and Herschel are just they were all world athletes, very fast, very quick. AC and Boo, well, I mean, they just had a heart, man, and they could really get after the football and get after anybody on defense. But you know, those guys, when you saw those guys, you know, certainly in the preseason, were y'all like, man, these we might actually have a shot at doing something with this group?
You know, it was funny back when those guys were on the JV, and Herschel was on the varsity as a sophomore, and Drew Carroll was on the varsity, I believe, as a sophomore, but most of them were on the JV, and we knew they were good. You know, we moved some of them up in the playoffs and played some, but we kept them together for the most part because we knew we had a pretty good nucleus the year before, you know, in other positions. But I can remember that we had to adjust our practices on the defensive side of the ball. Coach Fullen did, because AC made every tackle. He was making us look bad. I mean, we couldn't move the football. We couldn't do anything over there. The kids didn't have confidence because this little linebacker over there on the scout team was making all the plays, you know. And
there wasn't much to him.
No,
he wasn't a big guy.
If he and Boo walked in this door right now, and you would not, very unimposing as far as physical stature.
Right.
But when the lights came on,
oh man,
I'm telling you, those kids could play like no other. I mean, they had their heart was as big as their body. They practiced hard. They really, it was important to them. AC was a great leader on defense. He got people lined up. AC knew where they were going to, because he studied the game and he studied the linemen. There were times that he would come off to the sidelines after a series and say, "Coach, I know where they're running every play." Because he knew. He would see, he would look at, like, right guard's tipping it off because right before they snap it, he looks where he, or just little things like that made him the player that he was. But his want to and Boo's want to, and we're talking about just those two guys, but we had a lot of guys just like them. You know, there weren't that team didn't have a lot of Division I. There were not, Notre Dame wasn't coming to my office and looking for players. You know, it was just you know, we had you know, some kids in the defensive line. You know, Reagan Cook and Tom Berry were undersized defensive linemen, but they were making plays, man, and it's because they wanted to really bad.
Yeah.
And, you know, AC stands out a lot to me. He's such a great kid, and we stay in contact. You know, every once in a while, I'll just pick up the phone and call him, or I'll look on my phone and there's his, you know, that's him, or you know, and Boo. I keep up with Boo and a little bit. So it's you know, those guys were I like to call them program guys because they bought into the off-season part.
Yeah.
It was hard in off-season when the lights weren't around. I would put our kids' work ethic up against anybody in that old rusty weight room that's still over there. Mm-hmm. We kept it that way on purpose, Manny, and to this day it's that same way. We didn't want any glitz or glamour. We just wanted to know that that's where our teams are made, right there, and those kids bought into it. And you know, when it was all said and done, we're standing around knowing we're state champions. That was pretty special.
That's wild. Yes. Okay. So you guys get through the first two rounds, and you're getting through an El Paso team, and I believe, two El Paso teams to start?
El Paso, and then Lubbock Coronado.
Lubbock Coronado.
It was Coronado, yeah.
And then here comes Cedar Hill on Thanksgiving weekend in the Metroplex at Birdville ISD Stadium. I can still remember that. I can remember the roses right across the street from it. Because Robinette put me just in a crazy schedule that week.
Yeah.
It was there. It was following Wiley because Wiley was out there that weekend as well. But it started off, you know, with you guys against Cedar Hill, and these, I mean, you could tell you said that Notre Dame wasn't knocking on y'all's door, but Notre Dame was likely knocking on Cedar Hill's door and Joey McGuire's door, and because of the amount of D1 talent that was on the field and the way AC Carriola and Herschel Sims were just telling them, hey, man, why don't y'all go have a seat and let us take it from here?
Yeah.
Tell me about that game, because that was a bananas game, and it ended with you guys knocking off one of the best teams in the country.
Well, 21 Division I players for Joey off that team. that we beat that day. Think about that now. 21 Division I players.
That's too much.
You know,
man.
you only start 11 on each side of the ball, and I mean, I remember when we got to the stadium and we walked the field. Our kids were walking the field, and they came off. And about the time we were walking the field, they got off the bus and were walking the field, and our kids were like, "Coach," because a lot of times we would carry our shoulder pads and stuff and helmet out and put them on before we took the field to warm up. And I remember AC and Boo, they were just, it was a light moment, you know, and AC said, "Coach, we need to tell everybody to put our pads on before we go outside, so at least we'll be a little bit bigger. Have you seen those guys over there?" And we got a good laugh out of it. But, you know, that didn't matter to our guys. They were going to do what they were coached to do. Really well-coached kids that did exactly what we asked them to do. And you know, we fought hard. And the longer we stayed in the game, the longer our kids believed we can beat these guys. We found a few things we liked that we felt like we could take advantage of, and that's what we preached at halftime. You know, I remember our coaches talking about, guys, we're in this game and we're gonna beat these guys. If the longer we stay in the game, the better chance every play you make is going to give us a chance to win this game today. I'll tell you something that was interesting. A lot of those coaches in that district we played in that year, you know, Haltham, Richland, Poly, all those. There was the coaches from North Richland Hills High School were there. That was their stadium, and there was about 7 or 8 of them standing in the end zone as we came out to start the game. And as we came off the field at halftime, there was a smattering of more coaches down in that end zone. There was like 15 or 20. We came out at halftime, Manny, and there was probably every school we played in district was represented, and there was probably 40 coaches there.
Wow.
And the coach from Richland Hills said, "Pass the word. You guys need to get up here and see this, because Abilene High is fixing to knock off the #1 team in the nation. I guarantee you." And those guys are there to support us and watch it. And that was so cool, you know, that day. But you know, fast forward to the fourth quarter when they're driving to go up, you know, 10. It would be 10 points, I believe, if they score, and they take 4 shots from the 1-yard line, and we stop them. And a lot of people don't realize the play that was made. They took the ball. They had the ball on about the 30 and broke it. They're gone for a touchdown. I mean, they're going to go score, and it's not going to be pretty if they score. Karsten Goodman comes all the way across the field and knocks their running back out on about the 1-yard line. 4 plays later, from the 1-yard line, we've stopped them 4 times.
Wow.
AC made the last play for a -2 or 3 yard loss, and just a phenomenal goal line stand that I'll never forget. And then we line up, get the ball on offense, trying to get out, and then on second down, we get in the Dirty Bird. That was our version of the Wildcat. We get in the Dirty Bird and we snap it to Herschel, and he goes 96 for a touchdown. And for whatever reason, that put them in a tailspin, and we took off from there. And you know, we sent them home in a big way after that. It was an amazing, and that, Manny, is when I realized as a coach, had been doing it a long time, and I think a lot of our coaches realized we can win it all. If we can beat a team that's that talented, we've got a chance. If we can keep doing things the way we're doing them, stay healthy, we can win it all. And we did. We were able to.
And the rest of the way, I mean, you guys, I mean, y'all played, Arlington Sam Houston. It was Klein Collins the rest of the way, and then y'all eventually met up with Katy. But, you know, looking back at that 2009 season, it felt like that game against Cedar Hill, that was almost like the big game of that postseason. Obviously, I mean, Katy was they gave you guys a nice little run, but y'all were in control for the most part of that game. But that game against Cedar Hill right there, and I'm always curious. I always love hearing the stories. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But the word shared with Joey McGuire afterwards, who's now the head coach of Texas Tech. What were the words shared with him after the game?
You know, after the game, he was so appreciative and so humble about how we beat them that day. He said, "I've never been beaten by a team that had, and he said he meant this in a really complimentary way, that we had so much more talent then, but we got outplayed today and we got outcoached today. And I'll tell you a story about Joey. He and I are good friends today. In fact, he's had me up a couple of times to talk to his team at Texas Tech. But I went by his office after I retired. He was still at Cedar Hill, and he said, "I want to show you something, Coach, that I've saved to show when we get full of ourselves around here at Cedar Hill, and we start thinking that we're pretty good." He said, "I want to show you something." So he took me back into a room where all their videos and tape and films were. And there was an old VCR. We were DVDing it by then, but it was an old VCR. He plugged it in, and it kicked the tape out. And it was the 2009 Cedar Hill Abilene High game. And he said, when we get to practicing, when we get sloppy around here, when we get to feeling like we're pretty good, we take time off and we watch that game.
Oh, my gosh.
Because we got beat by a bunch of tough kids from West Texas that day, and it's because we weren't ready. And he said, "I mean that with all due respect." And he and I have a great relationship today still. It'll always be that way. He and I have a special friendship, and he was very gracious. After that game.
Yeah.
So.
Well, love me some Joe McGuire and love me some Reckham Tech.
There you go. Exactly.
There we
He's
go.
doing a great job up
Yeah,
there. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, he is.
It really is fun to watch.
All right, before I know we're getting close to landing the plane here, but I do want to touch on that state championship game against Katy in San Antonio, Texas, in the Alamo Dome. It was in December. It was a week before Christmas. This is 16 games in. You're playing against one of the most storied programs in all of Texas, the Katy Tigers. I remember we sent out a news reporter down to Katy to actually talk to just some people around there, and they're like, "Abilene who?" They didn't care. They were just thinking they were en route to whatever state championship they were thinking that they were about to win. And you guys, y'all were you're just like, you know what? I think we can do it.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Delvan Cox. You had brought him out in a press conference as well, and he was all about his offense at that point, with what Ronell and Herschel can do. But tell me about that game. Tell me about winning that game. Was there one thing that stuck out with you that will forever be?
There's several things, but the thing that I remember in pregame, we'll start with pregame. Boo came up to me. And those guys were so good about being light in the moment. A lot of people would have been really tight.
Mm-hmm.
We're going up against the vaunted machine of the Katy Tigers, who, like you said, we were irrelevant to them. It didn't. But Boo came up, and they had a tight end that had committed to UCLA. I can't recall his name, but he was big. He was about 6'5" and 245, and a blocking machine, man. And Boo was going to have to line up against him a lot. And so Boo came up to me in pregame, and he said, "Coach, you seen that guy I have to go up against?" And I said, "Boo, and watched him on tape all week long." "Yeah, I've seen him." We're laughing. He said, "He's twice as big as I am, Coach." And I said, "I know." He said, what I got to do?" And I said, "I'm going to give you a big coaching tip here, Boo. When he comes to block you, don't be there." And he wasn't. 16 tackles later, he's the MVP of the game on defense, and he wasn't. So that's some high-level coaching, man.
Yeah, it is. You're the Bill Belichick's of the world.
There you go,
point.
right there. But that was the pregame part of it. I remember when Ronell scored on the first drive. I told Delvan on the headphones. I told him, I said, "We're going to win this game because we want it worse and we're faster than they are." And we were. I think we wanted to win the game worse than them. I think they took us for granted a little bit. And again, the longer it went, the more confidence our kids had. Ronell had a huge game because they were stuck on stopping Herschel, and Herschel still had 100 yards rushing, but Ronell had 200 plus and got in the end zone 2 or 3 times. So it was but when the game's over with, and towards the end of the game, you get the Gatorade bath and all that stuff. But there's a picture, and I've got it in somebody, you may have seen it, but I turn, and the first person that's there that I get to embrace when it hits zeros is my dad, and big time, it makes me emotional now. But Yeah, I mean that was the cherry on top of it right there, man. It just doesn't get any better than that. It really doesn't. Special Eagle Nation was there, like you were. Oh my
Oh yeah.
gosh, coming out of the tunnel, they came out first. We were under the TV. They told you when to come out. They came out. We were facing their fans, and it was so loud. I was like, holy cow, that's like everybody in Houston is here, I think. But then when they turned us loose, the Eagle Nation doubled it up, man.
Let's go.
It was let's go. They were ready, and it was a special day. There's no question about it. So
It felt like all of Abilene was there. It felt like West Texas really showed up
Yeah.
for you guys.
Yeah, they did.
And that was a special day, man. That's
a lot of fun.
yeah, it was.
A lot of fun to coach that game and look back on it now, and you get that ring, and you have a special bond with that team and those kids.
How often do you wear that ring?
It's funny. Del Van and I talk about it. He's such a great friend of mine. We'll go to different functions and things, and we call it a ring wearing opportunity. You think this is a ring wearing opportunity? You have to take it down off its perch where you have it at your house. But I really feel like maybe tomorrow night at my ceremony, I think
100%.
a ring wearing opportunity.
Yeah, and that's a good. I mean, that's a nice bling there.
It's nice. It's very nice, and you look at it and it brings back all those memories. It's a symbol of that season.
Rush of nostalgia.
Oh gosh, yeah, just so much history that we were able to tie back to with all those other state championships, and to plant our flag amongst that was pretty special.
Man,
Yeah,
that's
good
really
stuff.
the last time a West Texas team in that level of high school football has won.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, I hope we see more. I hope in my lifetime to see another West Texas team do it. Obviously, you see the Duncanvilles and the Galena Park North Shores, really just South Lake Carroll, just really dominating. And I wish there was a little bit more parity involved in Class 6A football, Class 5A football, but it's just the way it is. Those Metroplex schools, they dominate. But that year in 2009, West Texas really.
We had our day
solidified
that day, that's for sure. And I hope, excuse me, like you said, I hope someday there's somebody in West Texas that can do that. I'd like to see the old Eagles rear up and win a state championship in 5A. The program still is rolling. They still do a lot, which makes me really proud that Coach Fullen has kept a lot of the same things, and so did Coach Cox that worked for us back in 1996 and 97 and 98. Mm-hmm. They still do some of those things, and it's because it works.
Right.
And it's a tradition-rich place, and I'll tell anybody, North 6 and Shelton is a special place.
Yes, sir.
Everybody else says, well, we got this, we got that. North 6 and Shelton is a special place. There's no question about it.
Last two things, Coach. The season after that, you have Herschel Sims, you have Ronell Sims. These guys just blow up. Herschel Sims especially, you had the World of Jinx, MTV, follow around her. I mean, there's a camera crew following him around. And so me and Tyler Edwards, we're following around this camera crew as this camera crew's following around Herschel Sims. You guys had a BCS-type schedule. You played against Plant, Florida. You played against Cocoa, Florida. You played against, you name it, and some of the most big-time programs in the country at that point. They came to Abilene. Y'all went to them. Y'all met them somewhere in between. That season alone, was it like, was it kind of like being on reality TV? Was it like Hollywood? What was that season like?
It was different, that's for sure. And we had, but I remember telling some of the coaches after a couple of weeks that, you know what, every team we play this year is going to be like a Super Bowl. No matter who we play, because they want to knock us off. We're the defending state champions, and now we've got all this national attention, and we're ranked in the nation, and all this stuff is going on around us, and so it's going to be different. And to navigate all that, I give a lot of credit to Coach Cox and Coach Fullen. They were my coordinators, and other coaches as well, but they kept their sides of the ball grounded while I navigated the media and stuff like that, and all the hype that surrounded, the Nike game and the ESPN game and whatever was next,
Well,
the cameras.
the Nike game, I remember because they came out with those great uniforms
Yeah.
with you guys. I was against Plant, Florida,
Yes.
and they came to Shotwell's on a Thursday night. But I remember a story that was shared how, like, I guess you had lost your sunglasses. You were trying to get some sunglasses. I don't know what it was. It was maybe one of those. But then they had you mic'd up during practice, and you're like, man, oh man, wouldn't it be nice to score some nice Nike glasses or
Yeah.
some new Oakley shades? Share that story, because I can remember you telling me that, or some sort.
Yeah.
I heard that at some point.
Well, I made that comment. I was mic'd up, just messing around, and stuff like that. And Nike had said, "This is our game, so you're gonna." And we weren't a Nike school, and so they made uniforms for us. We wore Nike. The kids got to design their shoes, for the game and that sort of thing. And I made that comment. I said, "Well, it'd be kind of cool to have some those snazzy Nike glasses." Or they just popped off, or something like that. And anyway, one of their producers or something, we rolled out there on the day to warm up, and we played them on Saturday. That Thursday night there was a game. It was part of the Classic, if you remember. We played on Saturday. At 11, I believe, or something like that. We played that game. And anyway, whenever it was, I may be mistaken, but one of the producers from Nike that had been there all week showed up with a box of Nike glasses. I mean, and they were like, I would have never bought them because they're way too expensive for me to be wearing those kind of glasses. But I thought, dang, if I'd have known that, I'd have mentioned some more stuff on, on that mic.
How about some more shoes?
Yeah,
Maybe
or
some more swag here? Yeah.
But I've still got those glasses somewhere. And the shoes that we coached in that day, we got to keep them. And I wore them once, and I still have them. And they're black and gold Nikes, and on the back of them it says the kids chose the words "Defend It." And they're on the back of those shoes, and I still have those. It was pretty cool. But yeah, that season was different because we got everybody's best shot.
Yeah, you did.
Everybody's best shot, and we played well. We had a different kind of team because we stayed injured. The year before, when we won it, we stayed healthy. Nobody got dinged up, especially in the offensive line. We started 5 guys 16 weeks in a row.
Wow.
But the next year we stayed. Ronell didn't even start that third round of the playoffs against Southlake. He was in the locker room getting IVs.
He was sick.
He had the flu. He had 102 fever. He practiced very little that week. Herschel was banged up. He had a bad hamstring. I can't remember. We had a couple of other guys that were banged up. We just didn't have all of our bullets, and we needed them.
And y'all still almost had them.
And we played a good game. We had opportunities that day. Ronell tried to come out in the second half and play. We were trying to get some fluids in him, but he just couldn't make it happen. And Nate Kitley played some quarterback for us and that day, and we had to move some people around. The kids fought hard. We just didn't. We came up on the short end of it that day, but it was looking back on that season, it was a different season because you'd look down there at your opponent, and you could just tell, man, these guys came to play. We better be ready, And
That's awesome.
And we were. I was proud of my guys because we fought hard that year.
Yeah.
So,
well, Coach, as we land the plane here, if you can, and I'm always curious to know, when we talk to coaches whenever they've kind of had a chance to really kind of reflect on their careers, give me your top 5 most dynamic players that you had the opportunity to coach in your career. Maybe it's not even Abilene High, just in your coaching career, because this whole thing that's happening on Saturday, this is the entire shebang here.
It is. It's got to start back way early with John Lackey was my first quarterback, and was one of the most competitive athletes I've ever been around as far as being competitive. He wasn't the greatest athlete, but he was certainly one of the most competitive. He wanted to win to a fault. And the young man that beat him out that first year was tough for us to make that call, but it was Ahmad Brooks.
Yes.
Ahmad went on to play at Texas. He was our quarterback that year. He had started for me as a defensive back whenever I was the defensive coordinator prior to being the head coach. But he was also a quarterback. And he was we made him the quarterback, and he went on to have a great career for us, and then ended up at Texas as an All-American safety, a captain. Mac Brown signed him, and Mac told me, he said, I fully expect Ahmad to be the governor of Texas someday. That's the kind of leader he is.
Yeah,
And,
he's got that pizzazz.
Had the opportunity to go to the league and bounced around a couple of teams, but just didn't. He wasn't very big. I mean, his heart was bigger than his body, but at the end, I think that's what kept him from being. But he was in the NFL. But no, Ahmad and John were just tremendous there early on. David Roach, tremendous athlete. Of course, Sneezy. The duo. There's two duos that really remind me. Chris Williams was one of the best linebackers pure linebackers that I've ever seen in my life. The connection of Taylor Potts and Lyle Leon.
Oh yes.
Abilene High.
They did it again at Texas Tech.
Yeah, we went to the next level and did it again, and both of them had an opportunity to play in the NFL. They didn't quite stick, but that duo right there. Was, my goodness, just to watch them play, the connection they had and the way they played the game. And, of course, they had talent as well, which, there were years we didn't have a lot of talent, but that year with those two guys and Colby Lewis in the backfield, we were talented.
Baby.
And, they were that duo was pretty special. And then you fast forward to Herschel and Ronell, that duo was pretty special as well. So, we had some guys that could, but I just like to look back to at the ACs and the Boo Barrientes and the just the kids that that maximized their talent because that they came to the field house every day wanting to do as good as they could, and they worked that way. And a lot of those guys, I see them now, Manny, and they'll come back and they'll say, Coach, that off season, I still lean on that today, and I'm a 40-year-old man. And Lucas Brake, we just buried his parents yesterday, the Brakes that were lost in the flood. Lucas was a linebacker for me in 1998 and went on to be a tremendous career in the military. But a lot of kids like that will come back and say, those things that you taught us in off season, the grit, the determination, the leadership, the commitment, I still carry those with me today. They talk like that, and that makes me really proud. That all the wins are great, but those things right there are the wins that you'll carry with you from now on. And
well, being in those locker rooms, as a member of the media, being in the or in the practices, hearing you and your coaching staff, especially you, I wanted to strap on some pads, put on a helmet, and run through a brick wall for you. And I can only imagine if having that opportunity. And I think it's almost like a fraternity of guys that played for you, and they have the opportunity to say, you know what, I played for Steve Warren.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a cool thing to say.
It is. It's very cool. It's we always talked about it when you put that gold hat on. It was something special, and it still is today. And that's never going to be. Every once in a while you laugh, Manny, but every once in a while I'll get a call from out of the blue, some kid, just out of the blue, and he'll say, Coach, man, I need one of those. Come down the ramp and kick some tail speeches. I need one of those right now, and we'll laugh like that, know. And so it's. I used to get a lot of comments about my pregame speeches. Those were a lot of fun.
Ooh, yeah, man. I mean, you can run through about 2 or 3 brick walls after one of those. Baby. Let's go. Let's go on a Friday night.
That's right. Let's go.
Well, Coach Warren, congratulations to you. I do not expect that this is going to be our last conversation. In years time, I anticipate we'll kind of revisit some of these old memories because that's what they are at this point. And forever you'll be ingrained in Abilene High, city of Abilene. For what you've done, how you've contributed to the city and the big country, and I can speak for Tyler Edwards. Y'all made time for us. How y'all cared for us and made time for us, especially with Robinette as well. That was such a good time, and whenever I talk to new young up-and-coming sports reporters, I always tell them about that 2009 year, and they can't believe it, that Abilene High won it. And I was like, you better believe it. We have the film to show you.
We were there.
Yeah, so
well, thank you, too, not only for this, but the way you did your job early on. And, there's a lot of young reporters that have come through this place. And you and I grew up together, so to speak. And it's been a lot of fun to watch you. And I really have enjoyed being around you and David and a lot of these other guys. It's been a lot of – that's just one little piece of the whole story.
Yes.
And it really is. And it's always going to be there, and it's always going to be fun to look back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Coach Warren, thank you again, sir, and congratulations.
I appreciate that a lot. Thanks.